I know this is going to sound insane, but I swear this is real. I'm Elon Musk. Yeah, that Elon Musk. I'm not here to brag, flex, or start a debate about Mars. I'm here because I'm a human being who just got gutted by someone I trusted. I guess even billionaires get blindsided by betrayal. So here's the setup. I've been with my wife, let's call her, R, for about 6 years. We met when I was in a more chaotic place emotionally, post-divorce, post-Twitter buyout burnout. She was young, fun, said she wasn't into money, and made me laugh more than I'd laughed in a decade. Honestly, it felt like maybe this one was different. I should have paid attention to the little things. Like how she always had 2 phones, but one was for work. She doesn't work. Or how she'd always make subtle digs at my friends, but act all sugary sweet in front of them. Or how every time I tried to open up about stress, be it SpaceX, Tesla, or the political heat, I'd get hit with, "Why are you always so negative?" She'd say it in this cutesy, mocking way that made me feel like I was the problem. Still, I stuck with her. Love is weird like that. You make excuses. You tell yourself maybe she's just stressed too. And when I got into this whole back and forth power feud with Trump, yeah, that actually happened, and no, it wasn't about politics. It started over something so stupid, you wouldn't believe it. She seemed supportive. She'd ask questions like, "So are you going to jail or just get sued?" Followed by a sarcastic kiss on the cheek. And I laughed it off. I was busy dealing with lawsuits, investigations, media chaos, and trying to keep Neuralink from being painted as some kind of Bond villain operation. The last thing I expected was betrayal from home. But that's the thing, isn't it? It always comes from the place you feel safest. And in hindsight, I think she wanted me distracted. I think she was counting on it. So yeah, things were tense on all fronts. Trump and I were trading veiled barbs through interviews and unrelated policy suggestions. I had DOJ lawyers poking around, investors getting spooked, and Twitter, X, flipping out every time I opened my mouth. Meanwhile, R was weirdly chill about everything. Like, suspiciously chill. She started going out more, brunches with the girls, late-night Pilates retreats, a sudden interest in wine tastings when she's always said she hated wine. I remember one night I asked her, "Didn't you say Chardonnay tastes like printer fluid?" And she laughed and said, "That was before I developed taste." I let that slide. I always let things slide. Then came the moment everything shifted. It was a Tuesday. I was in Austin, back-to-back meetings. My assistant handed me my backup phone, the one I hadn't used in months because it still had my old Tesla SIM card in it. I powered it up just to check if it still worked. Hundreds of old messages popped up, most of them useless. But then, there was one, from this week, which was impossible. It was a calendar invite, synced from our phone. Dinner, 7 p.m., Hotel Zaza, D+E Red Heart. I stared at it. D+E. E as in Elon? No, I didn't book that dinner. I opened the full details. It had a note. Same room as last time. Let's not get caught. Winky face. I felt this sick, icy rush through my chest. My first thought wasn't even anger. It was denial. This has to be some weird joke. Maybe she's planning a surprise? Maybe D is her cousin? But I knew. I'm not proud of this, but I had my security team pull up footage from the hotel that night. And there she was, dressed like she was auditioning for a music video, walking into the elevator with a man I recognized instantly. Donald. Freaking. Trump Jr. Hand on her lower back, whispering in her ear. She laughed. That laugh, it used to be mine. I didn't even know I was capable of that kind of rage. There I was, standing in a cold underground parking garage beneath the Tesla HQ, gripping my phone like it had personally betrayed me, watching grainy black and white footage of my wife with Donald Trump Jr., giggling like a teenager sneaking out of prom. I don't even remember walking back to my car. I just remember sitting in the driver's seat, staring at the dash, shaking so hard I had to take deep breaths to keep from passing out. The irony? At that exact moment, CNN was playing on the little in-car screen, some pundit saying, "Elon Musk is a master of control, precision, and composure." Yeah, not even close. Here's the part where I admit something I hate. I still didn't confront her right away. I stewed for 2 days. Let it boil in my brain while she walked around the house in yoga pants, making protein smoothies and talking about getting a new crystal for her aura. I watched her act like everything was normal. Like she hadn't been in a hotel room getting railed by the son of my political arch-nemesis. And every time she smiled at me, I wanted to scream, "Who the hell are you?" But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I did something petty. I had a bottle of Trump wine shipped to the house. Put it on the kitchen counter. Didn't say a word. Just waited. She noticed it that night. "Oh my God, why is this here? You hate this brand," I said. "Thought maybe you had new taste now. Isn't this what you drink at Hotel Zaza?" That was the moment. She froze. Dead silence. Like a statue mid-breath. Her mouth parted like she was going to pretend to laugh, but nothing came out. And then she did what I didn't expect. She smirked and said, "Well, I guess you were going to find out eventually." She said it so casually, like she was telling me we were out of oat milk. "Well, I guess you were going to find out eventually." That smirk, that smug little smirk, it made my skin crawl. My ears were burning. I think my heart actually stopped for half a second because I just stood there, frozen, like my brain had short-circuited. I finally said, "So it's true. You've been seeing Trump Jr." She tilted her head and gave me this mock pity look. "You know, if you weren't always so obsessed with rockets and fighting with his dad on social media, maybe I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere for attention." That was the first lie. Let's be real. I gave this woman everything. She's got a house that could land a Falcon 9 on the roof. She's got assistants, cars, a private chef, and a wardrobe that could bankrupt a small country. But somehow, I was the problem. I asked her how long it had been going on. She took a breath, like she was doing me a favor by answering. 6 weeks. Maybe 8. Second lie. I'd already checked the hotel logs. It had been 14 months. I told her I'd seen the footage. That I had security tapes, calendar syncs, even text transcriptions from her work phone that showed her calling me a dead-eyed Martian boy. That one stung. More than I care to admit. She blinked, didn't even deny it. She just said, "You weren't supposed to see that." I said, "That's your takeaway?" And that's when she really lost it. She suddenly turned it all around. "You know what? You're just mad because he gets more attention than you now. Admit it. You're scared he's more relevant." Relevant? I'm out here literally launching satellites and she's calling Trump Jr. relevant? That's when I realized I wasn't arguing with my wife anymore. I was arguing with someone who had already left me emotionally, months ago. I was just the last to get the memo. I told her to get out. She laughed. "Oh, please. You think I didn't plan for this?" She stood there, arms crossed, leaning against the kitchen counter like a Bond villain in athleisure. "You think I didn't plan for this?" She said again, smug as hell. I asked, "Plan for what, exactly?" She reached into the drawer, my drawer, the one I keep all the random stuff in like chargers and utility bills and the one Tesla key no one uses, and pulled out a thick manila folder. Slapped it down on the granite countertop like it was her closing argument. "Pre-divorce asset strategy," she said. "Dated 6 months ago. I've got a lawyer. You've been served figuratively so far." I opened the folder. It was real. She'd hired one of the top celebrity divorce attorneys in LA, probably the same one that helped Johnny Depp or Amber Heard. Pages of documentation, photos, emails, some edited, bank statements. Most of it BS, but crafted strategically. "Why would you do this?" I asked, voice flat. "Why am?" And here came the third lie. The whopper. She shrugged and said, "He understands me. He listens. And he's not afraid of a real man's politics." I nearly choked. "Real man's politics?" I said. "He posted a selfie crying because someone called him a Nepo baby." She rolled her eyes and started walking away. "I'm not doing this with you, Elon. You're always dramatic when you don't get your way." That one hurt more than anything she'd said so far. Not the betrayal. Not the cheating. Not even the fact that she'd apparently been building a legal nuke behind my back. It was the casualness of it. Like I was some temporary project she'd grown bored of. Like I wasn't a person. Then she added one more parting shot. "By the way, you might want to check Twitter tomorrow morning." And walked out of the room. I did check Twitter the next morning. And what I found broke something in me I didn't know could still break. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I sat in my office, just spiraling, doom-scrolling, staring at the manila folder she left on the counter like it was a loaded weapon. Every few minutes I'd open it again, read the same line of legalese, then slam it shut. Like maybe if I closed it hard enough, none of it would be real. Around 6:04 a.m., I got the notification. At Donald J. Trump Jr., they say the richest man on earth couldn't keep her. Sad. Attached was a picture of her, wearing one of my SpaceX hoodies, sitting on some god-awful gold couch at Mar-a-Lago, grinning like she'd just won The Bachelor. Captioned, "When you upgrade from Mars to MAGA." I swear to God, my soul left my body for a second. Just floated out, looked around, and said, "Nope." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I laughed. That weird, manic laugh you do when your brain short-circuits. Like a villain in a movie who's been shot and suddenly finds it hilarious. That tweet? It went nuclear. Within an hour, hashtag Mars2MAGA was trending. Every idiot on the internet had a take. Some people were cheering her on like she'd just escaped a cult. Others were saying Trump Jr. was taking down globalist technocrats one wife at a time. One guy made a meme of me photoshopped as Dr. Evil crying on a space rocket. And what did she do? She went silent. Radio silent. Not a single message to me. Not even to our shared assistant, who called me crying saying, I didn't know. Elon, I swear I didn't know. Here's the worst part. She looked happy in that photo. Genuinely happy. Not fake influencer happy. Like, deep in her core, free. And that's when I realized. She wasn't just leaving me. She was erasing me. She was trying to rewrite the entire narrative of who we were. She finally picked up the phone 3 days later. Not because I hadn't tried before. Believe me, I had. I called. I texted. I emailed. I even had my legal team send her a formal cease and desist about defamatory public conduct. I know, dramatic, but I was unraveling. Then out of nowhere, she FaceTimed me. I saw her name pop up and my chest seized. I thought maybe, she realized she'd gone too far. I answered. There she was, lying on some godforsaken gold bedspread, full makeup, sipping wine from a Trump-branded glass. I wish I was joking. Hi, babe, she said with a smirk. Or, should I say comrade? You still trying to build electric socialism up there? I lost it. I gave you everything, and you're doing cosplay with the guy whose dad called me a pedophile on Twitter? She giggled. You know, it is kind of funny when you say it out loud. I said, what the hell happened to you? And she just stared at me, cold, unblinking, and said, you stopped paying attention. I became invisible in a billion-dollar house with 12 bedrooms and no soul. I wasn't your wife. I was a prop, a trophy, a co-star in a live stream you never finished. And there it was, her narrative. It didn't matter that she'd begged to quit her job and move to Texas with me, or that she'd insisted we get a compound with manifestation space, or that she had a private yoga instructor flown in from Bali every month. She was rewriting history, and I was the villain. I asked, so Trump Jr. is your solution? That's your spiritual upgrade. She said, he makes me feel powerful. I said, he retweets conspiracy theories about wind turbines, Madison. She shrugged. You sell electric trucks. He sells attention. We're not so different. I ended the call right then. No yelling. No goodbye. Just tapped end and stared at my own reflection on the black screen. I didn't recognize the guy looking back at me. If you've never had your marriage meltdown become a national spectacle while your rival gloats on Truth Social, let me tell you, it's a hell of a thing to wake up to. By the 4th day after the tweet, the media frenzy was in full swing. TMZ ran with the headline, Musk's misses jets to Mar-a-Lago. Underneath, a grainy shot of her boarding a private jet, flipping the bird while wearing my Tesla hoodie. CNBC had a panel actually debating whether Trump Jr. was a step up or wild PR stunt. One guy said, honestly, she might be the smartest brand strategist of 2025. It wasn't just gossip columns. It was everywhere. Reddit threads, TikToks, late-night talk show monologues. Some jackass made a dance trend using audio of her saying, he makes me feel powerful, over a beat drop. So I did what anyone with a multi-billion-dollar PR team would do. I overcorrected. My people drafted a statement, one of those sterile, bloodless releases that says nothing but takes 4 paragraphs to do it. Something like, Elon remains focused on advancing humanity through innovation and asks for privacy as he navigates a deeply personal matter. That went live. 15 minutes later, Trump Jr. tweeted, you can't spell Neuralink without needy. Hashtag upgrade complete. It had 1.2 million likes in an hour. My comms director called me mid-panic. Elon, we have to respond. Do you want us to leak something? I said no. Then yes. Then no again. My head was mush. Meanwhile, SpaceX engineers were asking if I'd reviewed the next Falcon launch design. I hadn't. I couldn't think. I was barely eating. I started sleeping at the office again, like it was 2012, and I was still trying to convince people Mars was possible. Except now I wasn't dreaming about space. I was obsessing over the woman I thought I knew and the man who somehow turned my personal implosion into a meme war. If you're wondering whether a man worth over $200 billion can be caught off guard by a prenup, let me say this clearly. Yes. Yes, he can. Because when you're building rockets and tweeting like a raccoon on Adderall, you sometimes trust the people closest to you. Big mistake. We had a prenup. Ironclad. Or so I thought. Drafted by some of the most expensive lawyers in the Western Hemisphere. It had every clause you'd expect. No spousal support, asset protection, even a non-disparagement clause. But there was a rider. A tiny, easily missed clause, written in dry legalese and buried on page 57. The publicity trigger clause. Basically, if I caused public humiliation to the marriage by way of gross negligence and public behavior that led to reputational harm, the financial protections could be reviewed and partially voided. Guess what counts as gross negligence? A judge could interpret my tweets, late-night rants, and certain podcasts I went on as part of that. Especially with her playing the wounded, emotionally abandoned partner. Even worse? She'd already retained a legal PR firm. Not just any firm, the one Amber Heard used during her trial. I sat down with my lawyers. They looked exhausted already. One of them, this pit bull of a woman named Sheila, just pushed her glasses up and said, "Elon, she's building a case around your personality." That hit harder than any insult. It wasn't about what I did. It was about who I am. Or rather, who I appear to be to the public. My ex? She knew me well enough to predict exactly how I'd react and how the public would eat it up. She was baiting me, using my own ego against me. The same ego that built Tesla and SpaceX. The same ego that might now cost me $500 million. I stared out the office window that night, watching the LA skyline glow like it didn't care who was winning or losing. And I whispered to no one. She's not just trying to hurt me. She's trying to out-strategize me. So here's where it gets really wild. Up until this point, I thought she was just reacting, lashing out after years of feeling neglected, staging a petty rebellion by swapping Teslas for Trumps. Messy, sure, but personal. But then, I saw the photo. Not a paparazzi pic. Not a selfie. A candid, taken at a private dinner at Mar-a-Lago 2 weeks before she served me divorce papers. It was forwarded to me anonymously from a burner account with the subject line, "You're not fighting your wife. You're fighting a campaign." The photo showed her sitting beside Donald Trump himself, wearing that smirk she always used when she thought she was being clever. On the table, printed slides, a legal pad, a damn whiteboard. I zoomed in. There it was, scribbled in red Sharpie on the whiteboard like a marketing slogan. The only man to beat Elon Musk isn't a man, it's his ex. My stomach dropped. She wasn't just leaving me. She was collaborating. I called my lawyer. Why would Trump himself care about this? She replied without missing a beat. Because you humiliated him in 2022 when you pulled out of Truth Social's deal. This is payback, with flair. Suddenly all the tweets, the leaks, the memes, they weren't accidents. They were coordinated. Designed to get under my skin, make me spiral, and drag my reputation through the mud. And it was working. Even some of my own investors were calling me, telling me to stop tweeting, to play it cool, to just go dark for a while. But here's the thing. When you're a guy like me, wired the way I am, you can't go dark. You obsess. You retaliate. You escalate. And that's what I did next. I called a contact I hadn't spoken to since the Hyperloop days. Someone who knew how to make dirty digital footprints disappear or appear. I wasn't proud of it, but I was desperate. I told him one sentence. I need to know everything she's planning. I don't care how. So, I hired this guy, let's call him M. To dig into her digital life. I wasn't proud of it, but desperate times call for desperate measures. M's a wizard with code, and within 48 hours, he came back with files, messages, and videos that made my blood run cold. Turns out, she wasn't just playing political games. She was living a double life. There were encrypted chats with people I didn't know, including some high-profile lobbyists, media consultants, and yes, Trump's own campaign operatives. The messages talked about strategic public humiliation and leveraging emotional narratives for maximum impact. One message caught my eye. Phase 2 starts after the custody hearing. Keep Elon distracted with legal chaos and PR disasters. Make him the villain. Custody hearing? I swallowed hard. We didn't have kids. At least, not biologically. But then I found something else, a birth certificate. Not for a kid I knew about, but a child she'd given up for adoption years ago. Something she'd hidden from me, her closest confidant. Suddenly the pieces fell into place. The divorce wasn't just about leaving me. It was about control. Control of the narrative, control of the assets, and maybe, control of something else she'd been holding on to in secret. I confronted her again, this time with the evidence. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "You think this is about you? It's about survival. You have rockets. I have the media. You're just another target." That hit harder than anything. I realized she wasn't the bitter ex-wife anymore. She was a strategist, a chess player who'd been 5 moves ahead the entire time. At that point, it wasn't just a divorce anymore. It was a full-blown war zone. Lawyers piled in like armies, each side accusing the other of everything from emotional cruelty to public defamation. The media frenzy hit a new high, with daily leaks and explosive headlines. Every move I made was scrutinized, every tweet analyzed for hidden meanings. The line between my personal life and my public persona blurred so badly, I sometimes forgot who I was outside the chaos. Her? She embraced it. The more toxic the headlines, the wider her grin. She became the face of the wronged woman narrative, painting me as the absent, cold genius who only cared about rockets and billion-dollar deals. I won't lie, some days, I hated her. I hated the lies, the manipulation, the public spectacle. But beneath it all was a profound sadness. This was the woman I once loved, now weaponized against me. One evening, after a particularly brutal court hearing, I found myself alone in my office, staring at a framed photo of us from better days. The woman smiling back at me wasn't the same as the one tearing me apart now. And that's when the exhaustion hit me physically and emotionally. I realized this wasn't just about winning or losing. It was about reclaiming my sanity. After months of legal battles, media chaos, and nights that felt longer than the Mars transit window, I hit a breaking point. I realized no amount of money, lawyers, or public victories would fix the shattered trust or heal the wounds she'd inflicted, intentionally or not. I could keep fighting, draining resources, risking my reputation further, and exposing every ugly detail of our lives to the world. Or I could choose to step back, not because I was weak, but because I wanted to survive this with some shred of dignity intact. I reached out through my lawyer with a proposal, a mediated settlement with strict confidentiality, fair asset division, and a mutual non-disparagement agreement. Her initial reaction was predictably venomous. But something shifted after the third meeting. Maybe she was tired too. Or maybe the Trump circus needed to move on to the next scandal. Eventually, we signed. No public winners or losers. No grand proclamations. Just 2 broken people agreeing to stop fighting in the open. It wasn't perfect. I lost money, some friends, and a piece of myself. But I gained my freedom from the chaos. So here I am, post-war, trying to pick up the pieces of a life that feels both familiar and alien. The sting of betrayal still lingers like a low hum. You don't just forget when someone you love turns into a stranger who lied to your face. But what surprised me the most was how much strength came from accepting the pain instead of fighting it. I stopped obsessing over every tweet, every news headline, every sly comment from people who sided with one of us. Instead, I focused on what I could control, my work, my passions, and my mental health. I doubled down on SpaceX, Neuralink, and Tesla projects, not as distractions, but as my way to rebuild purpose. Trust? That's harder. I'm more guarded now, less impulsive with my heart. I've learned to spot red flags earlier and listen to that voice that says, slow down. And yes, I still think about what could have been if she'd been honest from the start. But regret doesn't serve me anymore. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to know, especially those tangled in betrayal's mess, it's this. All right, here's the real talk. After everything, the lies, the public circus, the unexpected alliances, the legal battles, and the heartache, what did I really learn? Trust cautiously, but don't close off your heart. You've got to protect yourself, yes, but don't become so guarded that you miss genuine connections. Don't let ego drive your decisions. It's tempting to fight fire with fire, especially when your pride's on the line. But ego can burn down what little peace you have left. Control what you can, accept what you can't. You can't manage every narrative or every person's perception. Focus on your values and your actions. Emotional intelligence beats brute force. I'm a tech guy, used to building rockets and solving problems with math. Relationships? They're a whole different launch sequence. Learn the human side. Sometimes, the smartest move is walking away. There's power in choosing peace over endless battle, even if it feels like losing. If I could talk to my younger self, I'd say, work on yourself first. The right people will respect that. And when betrayal comes, because it will, you'll survive. Not because you're stronger than the hurt, but because you learn to rise from it. So yeah, that's my story. Messy, surreal, and more painful than a failed rocket launch. But also a reminder that even when you're flying among the stars, the hardest battles are often the ones closest to home. Thanks for reading. And if you're dealing with something similar, stay strong, keep your head up, and remember, you're not alone.